Thank you. The first issue is whether I have a public comment. I do not. I hope everybody's been enjoying this summer. I know I've had a lot of little adventures, to say the least. But yeah, I guess it's back to the grind here as we close out. It's already September, practically, which is just amazing to me. This year has just flown by. But that's how it is every year, I suppose. Do we have any corrections to the minutes? I mean, if there are no corrections, the minutes will stand approved. And we will now move to the principal's report from Mr. Daniels.
Brian, you're on mute.
Sorry. Good evening, everyone. Please, can you pull up my my PowerPoint?
Yes. Give me 1 second.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Brian, can you send it to me again? When did you send it to me? The last meeting?
Yeah, when let's see where we have that from here.
I got it. I got it. Here you go. Hang on.
Thank you, thank you. So welcome everybody. As Rob stated, I hope you all have found some sort of pleasure in this this funny summer that we have had that has just been extremely busy and still kind of you know, off to ourselves, but just glad that everybody is here. I'm always, you know, just excited to, you know, to see folks and to just have the opportunity to share. And so this year we have a bit of a new team that I wanted to introduce tonight, as we have restructured a bit to really take us to the next level of where it is that we're looking to go as a school. So if you could scroll down, please. First, I would like to introduce our new elementary school assistant principal. This is Mr. Frank Medley. He comes to us from DCPS with a wealth of instructional background, a wealth of language and literacy that is going to really help us to reground and build the foundation that we've been looking to do from the early childhood and elementary standpoint. He's a linguist that speaks many different languages and has really kind of showed off even when we've been at different locations. So Mr. Medley is an absolute gem, and I wanted to welcome him to the team. He's gonna tell you a little bit about himself, and then he's also gonna get into the elementary school instructional plan, just to kind of give you an overview of where we're going this year for our K-4 program. Mr. Medley, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Daniels. I'm super excited to be a part of this team. I think Mr. Daniels did a great job introducing me, so I can just go and talk a little more about our K-4 framework for instruction. If we could go to the next slide. So, excuse me, so our entire purpose is for us to build teacher capacity with instructional expertise. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about our K-4 academic goals. And as you can see on the screen, we want 60% of our students in ELA and math in K-4 to reach their iReady projected growth targets from BOY to EOY. And also within that same vein, we want 30% of our students in K-4 to meet their annual stretch goals from BOY and EOY. And we know that this will help close the gap and bring kids closer to grade level standards. We are bringing in this year a dedicated time for foundations and phonemic awareness work. And we have created a goal that for 60% of students in K-2 will increase their proficiency rate in TRC, which stands for text reading comprehension, to proficient or advanced by the EOY. And we are going to make a school-wide gradual release model where we're going to start obviously with our various forms of assessments. We're going to have iReady assessment, we're going to have Lexia assessments, the BOY, we're going to have DIBELS and also foundations. And we're going to really hone in on the model instruction, which is the I do portion of the lesson, the shared practice, which is the we do, and the independent practice, which is going to be the you do. And intervention is going to be ongoing during this model. We also recognize, if you go to the next slide, that in certain situations that we will flip this model to have an inquiry-based approach so that we can deepen our students' conceptual understanding through problem solving and grit. So there will be times where we will start with the independent practice so we can see kids work through a productive struggle of the concepts that we are delivering, followed by the shared practice and then a model of instruction, again, with intervention and support being ongoing.
Are there any questions for Mr. Medley in elementary school? All right, then we will move on to Ms. Johnson. I did introduce her to many of you at our the last board meeting that we had, and she's going to tell you a little bit more about where it is that we are going with our middle school instructional program. So Danielle, I will pass the mic to you.
Great, good evening. Can you also go to the next slide? Great, I'm Ms. Johnson. I've been with you all now going on 18 months, almost coming up on 2 years, started in the classroom, and I am here. This is year 21 for me as an educator, year 16 in DC Public Charter. So I'm happy to be here, happy to lend some of my value add to the program. So our middle school growth goals align to our elementary school growth goals as far as our overall goal, having 60% of our students in grades 5 through 8 meet their iReady projected growth goal in both ELA and math. Within that though, our goal is also to have 30% of those students meet their projected stretch goal with the intention of trying to close as much of the gap as possible for those 5th, 6th, and 7th graders before we send them on to high school, understanding that it typically takes 3 to 5 years to fill a 2 to 3 year gap. So in targeting the stretch goal, it gives us an opportunity to really close the gap and to ensure that they have mastered the essential skills as they progress through the grade bands and because we are the transition point on to high school. We will focus on grade level priority standards in each grade in ELA, math, and science. Skills-based intervention and small group instruction will occur 2 to 3 times per week as a part of the actual instructional model with the addition of an intervention focused Wednesdays, where those days are solely targeted and dedicated to academic intervention based on standards mastery over time, as well as identify gaps of those children. Bi-weekly short cycle assessments will also be added to our regular assessment calendar. Those short cycle assessments will be pushed down from Edulastic, which is the standards-based assessment that can progress monitoring system that we'll be using this year. And they will also get those bi-weekly. So between the short cycle assessments and the larger school diagnostics, we'll be able to keep a clear picture on how we're mastering standards over time, in addition to how we are closing those gaps when we talk about iReady data. Outside of our academic approach, one thing we also want to do is focus really really hone in on culture, because we understand it's not only how they learn, but what they learn. So ensuring that we build our cultural program with increasing that average daily attendance rate by trying to funnel in some attendance incentives, advisory contests, things of that nature to incentivize children to actually be in place when that's appropriate, as well as facilitate 3 to 4 academic recognition ceremonies each quarter. So whether it's honor roll or like a park prep rally, but things to get them back into the thinking and the mindset of being students, and to get back into that practice and to make it fun, as well as facilitate some behavior incentives for children that meet their behavior goals, whether it's a fun Friday at the end of every month or you earn a homework pass. So in addition to our academic goals, we want to put an intentional focus on the cultural goals, not only to ensure that they can excel academically, but prepare them for that transition to high school, college, and the workforce.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Here you have just a general outline of our new structure. It mirrors the new Children's Guild org structure, where we have a senior leadership, we have a something like a director and a coordinator level, and these are all of the people, all of the staff that will end up reporting to them. So all the members of the leadership, of the senior leadership team, I believe, are already on. Many of you have met and know Ms. Estep, who was our director of school operations, but she has been promoted to the to more of the executive level, and she is now the director of school operations for not just our school, but the other charter schools that are in our network. So she is now, as far as the organization structure is in place, is now directly underneath of Kathy in our trans ed org structure. And so she's still a part of our family, and she's still linked into what it is that we do. But Ms. Frankie Carter, who in the past school year has been our testing coordinator, has now been elevated to the director of school operations role. Many of you have already met and heard from Dr. Tana Jackson, our director of special education. I'm pretty sure you can't see her. She's probably still in tears. She's dropping her oldest baby off to college in Philadelphia, and she's probably wiping tears as I'm talking right now. We love you, and I know it's hard, but you need to let her go. She's gonna be just fine, and if she's not, we'll be right on up the road to Philly. So just wanted to kind of give you an overall view of how it is that we're structured as a school, and we are really looking to be a much more just structured and intentional school as we look to make this shift towards leaning or pushing towards the visual, creative, and performing arts program that we are looking to make the shift with our in our charter. We have brought on board Mr. Kenneth Boucher, who will be our VPCA coordinator. He has already got his troops up and running, and starting to develop and work on differentiated ways of instruction and incorporating a bunch of literacy into what it is that they do as special teachers, as opposed to just really focusing on their content, which is just going to be the groundwork. And he will most likely be on the agenda for our next board meeting. So if you go to the next slide. So wanted to target some of the things that we're going to be doing in order to potentially close some of the learning gaps that we know are going to be present when our children return to the building. One, we all know that now there is a citywide mandate for all students, whether they're public school students, they're DCPS students or they're public charter students, for them to return in building. So we will have all of our kids in building unless they have the the medical waiver filled out by their physicians. So we are going to be looking to do a lot of intervention that will happen throughout the school building, from targeted interventions in small groups that that Ms. Johnson and Mr. Medley both spoke to. We are going to have that structured intervention Wednesday. That is in our schedule. We are also going to build in some in-place tutoring services in our after-school transit academy that our top-tier teachers will be able to facilitate some individualized instruction to help students close the gap. From a virtual standpoint, if they can't stay after school and they need to go home, we'll be able to provide a virtual tutoring platform through FEV, which is the company that we talked about in the spring, that will support our kids with a 24-hour homework and hurdle help line, but also give them a scheduled evening or even a potentially a weekend tutoring session to be able to help them to focus on those targeted gaps and things that they need to work on inside of school. Both Lexia is one of our reading interventions, and ST Math is our new arithmetic intervention that will help our teachers and our students to really focus on those learning outcomes that they'll need to really get a firm grip upon to be able to close those instructional gaps that we know that are there, but also be a little bit more structured and helping those kids that really need acceleration. So it's not just about those kids that are struggling, but it also will help to provide extended learning opportunities for those kids that are where they need to be, but also that also want to work a little harder and get a little bit more work completed. So next slide. So Mr. Medley touched on some of these things. Is there something more that you wanted to get into here, Frank?
No, just the engagement portion, which I think is the next slide. Sure. When we met as a team to discuss what our needs were going to be, Mr. Daniels had us do a needs assessment, and we kind of put them in 3 categories. So if you look at the slide before, we saw we put them in category of academics and then achievement. And so we really scored low in the engagement portion. So we created a belief that great schools have active family and community engagement, and studies show and continue to show that students achieve positive academic outcomes in proportion to a school's commitment to purpose-driven family and engagement principles. So Mr. Daniels really wanted us to restructure our school improvement plan to have a robust engagement plan. So our goal is going to be to develop parent leaders and to facilitate opportunities for parent participation and ownership. And here is our action plan. We want to recruit at least 5 families in early September and establish a PTO and an executive board. We plan to coordinate and facilitate a morning monthly parent meeting that we are calling a parent academy, but something a little more informal, titled Coffee with Principal. Something that doesn't really have something very, very informal for parents just to come in and to drop in. We want to establish informal open house opportunities for current and prospective parents. We are very excited about the creation of our parent university, which will offer workshop series for parents. Things like helping parents build resumes, giving them tools to help their students at home with the programs that we're using, such as iReady and Lexia, just making sure that they take ownership of those programs. And we wanted to have an equity loan. So we wanted to ensure that we had representation from our parents in our SPED and EL populations, and make sure that the content is accessible to parents. So making sure that if we have parents with disabilities, making sure that we are aware of how that information is disseminated, providing content in Spanish, and then finally providing opportunities for parent leaders to have access to technology. For example, checking out laptops are coming in during the day to use a laptop, obviously with CDC guidelines, access to Zoom and the internet to really ensure that parents feel empowered. Any questions with this goal?
Hi, good evening. This is Mayra Figueroa. How are you guys? I know that there's no specifics here, but I think if we make sure we tease out how we're going to disseminate this information on a consistent basis, and not so much like one of the things that you said, that if we are aware of a family that has some disabilities or speaks another language, that we would. But if we know that there's at least one family that speaks another language, can we make sure that it's in Spanish or, Arabic or whatever language that is? I'm just trying to tease that out a little bit. And I'm sure you guys already thought of it.
Absolutely. So when parents register, parents complete the home language survey. So we are aware of language needs. So I already speak Spanish and I speak French. So I will ensure that information that is sent out on flyers have been are in at least those two languages, and also any information that goes on a class dojo. So we have identified the languages that that represent our population, and will ensure that the equity is there to ensure that they get the information as well. Absolutely. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
All right, so as we continue to move forward into the social emotional, the first 6 weeks of school, we are gonna, of course, take care of the assessment components that both of the APs spoke to, because that's going to be a big part of us being able to set our classroom structurally and appropriately to be able to begin the instructional plan for the school year. But a big portion of what will happen in these first 6 weeks of school is really going to be around rebuilding our culture, rebuilding the foundation of who we have been as a school, to get to the point where we are to be able for kids to make advancements as far as their instructional and their academic programs are concerned. And we're going to do that through a use of both of these programs, which is Sanford Harmony and our SSIS program. The Sanford Harmony is going to be specifically for our all of our students that are, it's technically a K-6 program that we are gonna filter into our 7th and our 8th grade, just because a lot of our students actually just need some of the base skills that are part of the program. But the SSIS program also has a curriculum component that goes all the way up through 8th grade if we need to tier in some more of the social emotional components that may be a little bit more age appropriate. But the Sanford Harmony will be our core SEL curriculum that we'll use. It's a program that's used throughout DCPS, and we're adopting it at TCGDC to again to help us to reset, rebuild, and make sure that we are listening and making sure our kids have an opportunity to to speak on their truths, to get the opportunity to share where they are, so they feel like their school is theirs again, and it's not just a satellite home learning site. We want it to feel like home. We want it to feel comfortable. We want it to feel safe. And this program has a great and structured curriculum that's going to help us to reset that foundation for our kids. Next slide, please. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's it. You were trying to scroll. Do you have, are there any questions for my newly established and wonderful team? I'm so happy just to be able to come back into the building and have such a strong team and a committed team that is looking to really just build on things that I put out there, and they are just masterful at structuring activities and ideas around where we're going and where we're headed. So just wanted to say thank you to my senior leadership team that's on the call.
I do have, thank you, Principal Brian. I have a quick question. Do we have literature so we can see what, I never heard of the Sanford SEL program and the SSIS. So maybe if there's some literature that you can send out so we can read it and be more equipped to understanding it.
Absolutely. So I'll forward some. There are actually links to each of the programs that I can share with Elisa and Susan, and they can share with you all.
So I'll say welcome aboard, everybody, to the people in new leadership roles for our school. The next item on the agenda is to get an update on our board meetings. We've had the
Mr. Seabrooks, if I could just interrupt 1 second. We do have a quorum now. So perhaps before we lose that, we may want to vote on the minutes from last meeting, get approval for any items that might need to be approved.
Sure, thank you for that, Ms.
Yes, ma'am.
Lane.
Yes, sir.
Having heard that, can I get a motion for the approval of the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
I second.
All right, all those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, then having heard no opposition, the meeting minutes have been approved from the last board meeting. And now we will go into our board meeting update. The first is that our calendar for the upcoming year has been approved. And the meetings will be continued to be held virtually. It's a pretty short and concise update for that, which will move us to our next meeting agenda item, which is the facility update from Ms. Lane.
Yes, good evening, everybody. There are a number of things we wanted to update you on with regard to our facility. It became, well, actually for about 2 years now, we've been having roof issues at the school and causing leaks and tiles to get drenched and fall out of the ceiling in classrooms and hallways and so on. So we had notified 2 years ago our landlord, and he reported that he replaced the roof. And the following year, which was the year of 1920, we continued to see spots on ceilings. We continued to have ceiling tiles, get drenched and fall out. And then of course we went into school closure for, a good over a year. And during that time, the leaks in the roof exacerbated and started occurring even on the first floor. We're a 2-story building, and even on the first floor. So it was very concerning to us, and we've been working with the landlord to address the matter, which he continues to tell us, he's addressing. So in the interim, we had a structural engineer come out to do a roof assessment, and they came to find out that the sheet metal, if you will, that is right below the roofing tile on the roof, was rusted out. And when they had come in to repair the leaks, tiles would be removed, and you could literally look up in the ceiling and see sky, because there was fairly significant rusting of the roof. He argued that he replaced the roof, and but upon inspection, there was a lot of seams that were allowing water to permeate, and the leaks were continuing. In addition to that, we'd been having ongoing concerns with a number of things related to the facility, not least of which is our transportation patterns, because it's a one-way street and you have school buses on a one-way street having to make sharp turns, cars having to park along the side of the road. And, there was honestly some accidents. It's hard to get the buses in and out of there when parents might be coming in to drop off or pick up, and same with staff. So additionally, as we really gained energy last year with our performing visual creative arts programming, it became clear to us that the facility would require, a number of updates and upgrades in order to, have a legitimate stage where the performances could take place, and art studios and, just visual performing creative arts spaces. And then not least of which has been our ongoing concern with student recruitment. Also on our block is a nightclub that during the day attracts a number of homeless individuals. There is a marijuana distribution site down the street, and then an undeveloped industrial area across the street. And we really, believe that the location itself is also negatively impacting our enrollment. And, it's not very accessible to families. So that's why we have to provide transportation. It's not in a neighborhood where you would naturally attract, the neighborhood students and families. So we've begun a search for an alternate facility. So we wanted this board to be aware, and also for the subcommittee on marketing, enrollment, finance, and facilities to become engaged in our analysis of potential properties. We are engaged as an organization with a large development company in DC to look at our whole portfolio of properties. And so they have been looking for properties for us. Mr. Seabrooks has been very helpful in searching out potential facilities. And our lobbyist, Corey Griffin, and his partner, Stephen Marcus, have also connected us with potential opportunities. So we just wanted this board to be aware and to engage the appropriate committee in helping us navigate that, which will include potentially getting out of our existing lease. So we do have our legal department engaged with the landlord. We've issued a warning letter associated with him repairing the roof according to our structural engineer's assessment report, which warranted preventing any heavy snow to accumulate on the roof that might actually have the potential for a roof collapse. So with the weather as it is, I think none of us are in a position to know, if that's possible this year. And so we did put a deadline of addressing the problem by November. So we've just got a two kind of pronged approach, looking for alternate properties and also working with the landlord to ensure that the facility is safe for our children. Because in addition to that, we have many children who have underlying health conditions related to asthma and the like that could be negatively impacted by moldy or damp conditions in the school. And on top of that, the whole notion of having excellent ventilation and airflow throughout the building as we return all of our students is also a concern of ours. Just today, Brian ordered 36 air purifying machines, so each room will have better airflow. That's been proven to reduce the spread of the Delta variant by 36% in spaces that use them. So we've got a number of concerns related to the facility that, we know a number of our board members are new, and we wanted to, ensure that you were informed and that the appropriate committee could engage in this process with us. So, Mr. Seabrooks, that's kind of the update, unless Brian, did I miss anything of importance?
No, just that, we're doing what we can to try to, mitigate some of the issues. It's, we need space that is going to work for, our families. We need space that we're going to be able to market in a positive way. And just from the outside looking in, there's just nothing attractive about our slanted parking lot that we share with the church. There's nothing attractive about, our street, and the fact that, it's really more like a one-way street than it is a two-way street. So if we are going to branch out and really make ourselves known, a different location is definitely going to be beneficial in our quest to do that. And I mean, those roof issues have just been something that even after the entire roof was repaired, I mean, it just amazes me that the leaks happen in all of the same spaces that they were happening previously. And when the ceiling tiles are falling in, and we initially were like, this is just wet insulation. It's now, we're looking at it, and it's the fireproofing seal in the building that's also not in the space where it's supposed to be, to be able to make sure that the building is just safe from a fire standpoint. There's just multiple things that have created uncertainty in the Guild, just to have us start looking for a new home for all of our students and our staff, for that matter.
So I anticipate we'll be getting into some legal communication with the landlord, and we'll be, pursuing good structural analysis by external contractors, because the landlord had up to this point, whenever the building needed a roof repair, he would hire his own company to do it. And then, it was done to his specifications, but we didn't feel it was done to, what it should be. So we anticipate that kind of coming to a head this fall. We have a meeting with the developer on Friday at the school at 9 o'clock to discuss some potential properties. And then there is a fairly substantial process that we would have to follow with DC Public Charter Board related to moving to a different facility that requires DC Public Charter School Board approvals at different points in time. So it's a journey we'll be taking, and we appreciate the support of the Facilities and Finance Committee as we engage in the work. Brian, how much space Reverend McNeil is asking? What's your current square footage of the building?
It's currently 60,000.
And, with probably needing more of a auditorium type space so that we could have performances on a stage with a, audience present. We don't currently have that. We don't currently have a legitimate gym even to offer physical education. And we don't really have the space for an appropriate playground, which this committee already did all the work on it, and the reason we kind of halted it is because it was going to be a very unique design for a very small space, and so we didn't want to invest that money if we were going to be able to get out of this lease and move to a more appropriate facility. Does that answer your question, Reverend McNeil?
Yes, it does. It does.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other questions or additional information we could share?
And just so I'm clear, we're saying that we need at least 60,000 because that's where we're at now. Plus, we're looking for a space that has an auditorium.
I would say that, I guess essentially we'd be looking to double the space. That way, inside of that double square footage should be enough space to give us a similar structure to the classrooms that we already have, but should also have enough space for, in my head, I mean, if we were able to find a space that had an auditorium and a gymnasium space, that would be ideal. But at least something that we would be able to utilize as a multi-purpose room to, be like a dual space that we would be able to do both in. And of course, something that's completely separate from the cafeteria space. So having a dedicated cafe space and then a dedicated multi-purpose room that would potentially, be able to shift as a gym, just giving us the square footage to be able to do all of the things that we're gonna want to do. Because we're talking about creating, dance studios in the building. We're talking about creating, drama and instrumental music type of classrooms where we could actually have, a band and choral practices and things of that nature. So we're gonna need significant square footage to be able to do that, whether it came through renovations or the space that's already there. So we're really looking at, over 100,000 square feet, along with the potential for the gym and the auditorium space, and then hopefully, of course, a place that has a dedicated parking lot for us, because that also becomes another issue of us having to pay, one of our neighbors in order to utilize their parking lot, and it's typically to the tune of anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 a year just for parking and having a space for our staff to be able to park, and those things just all add up. So if we can get that along with some exterior space, some grass and things where if we need to expand and we need to build a playground, it's going to have enough, square footage on the actual lot itself for us to be able to do that.
Mr. Daniels, are we tied to a particular section of the city?
Honestly, Reverend McNeil, I would say no. If we can get into a space, like Kathy said, that is just more residential, it wouldn't really matter to me if we were in 7, 8, 5, 3, 2. Right now, I feel like if we get to a space that is just more beneficial to what it is that we're looking to do, we can get kids because we're already used to transporting them. So no, I don't think we're tied to a specific ward.
Okay, thanks.
We'll just add to Brian's analysis, which I support 100%, is obviously moves like this, we have a lease that we're engaged in that would have to be addressed. You're going to hear shortly about our enrollment numbers, which drive our budget, that are not as solid as we would need them to be. And financial stability, which we have, unless our enrollment doesn't meet our targets. But this all has to happen within the context of Brian's operating budget. And so we need to be very mindful that we're paying for 60,000 square footage of space right now. To go up to 100,000, obviously it's going to come with a higher price tag, and all that's got to be part of the consideration for any potential move.
Yeah, but just like the board, the charter Children's Guild Board was stating, the environment right now may be more conducive for us to find a space. So hopefully, that'll work to our favor. Any other questions for Ms. Lane or Dr. Daniels on this issue? Before we move on to the next issue, which is, did I hear a question?
Yeah, I have one question. Is there a budget on the space that you're looking for? I'm actually talking to a good friend who's a realtor.
We could pull up Brian's budget and see what we're currently paying and get that information to you. So I will get that and put it in the chat, Reverend McNeil.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Great. So it might be a situation if we build it, they will come. The next agenda item is getting an update from Mr. Turner. Is he here for the lottery results and marketing? If he is not here right now.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Great, thank
Good
you.
evening. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So Lisa, if you can pull up the report that I sent you, please.
Would you like the video or the report?
You can pull up the report first.
Okay.
All right, so with school right around the corner, as Kathy mentioned, we're not where we would like to be. For our returning students, we're currently at 149 students. The good news is we have about 70 students that we have left in our pipeline that we're continuing to work to get them registered for the upcoming school year. In regards to new students, we have a solid 40 students that we're expecting to join us this year. Currently, we have 6 in the pipeline, but I'm confident we can get to 10 to 15 additional students going into the school year. So with those two areas of opportunity, we feel like that's going to get us closest possible to that 280 goal. As everyone had mentioned, I mean, to be honest with you, it's music to my ears to even be discussing a new location. Spending a lot of time in the communities, a lot of time recruiting in our grassroots efforts. You get an opportunity to see our competition and you see other schools and other locations and other facilities. And if you see it and you can tell the difference, then certainly a parent can see it and tell the difference. So, I'm hoping that we can, come to an agreement to get out of this lease and find a location that's suitable for, a school age kid that's looking to go to a prominent school. So moving forward to the marketing efforts, just this past weekend, we were at 2 community events. We were at the Cure the Streets backpack event. Brian came out there with us. We were able to make some connections. We actually were able to connect with the organization that sponsored the event, the NAARC, which stands for National Association for the Advancement of Returning Citizens. So we had a great conversation with them, and we're connecting with them this week and trying to find little pockets in the city where they are aware of students that aren't attending schools. And we were able to go to the Chuck Brown event and hand out some marketing material. On the 27th, we have our back to school event, which we're actually, we have a video from a new member to the family. So Elisa, if you can show that video. Is it working?
Yes, give me just 1 second.
Okay. And while she's getting the video queued up, the purpose the purpose of what we're about to discuss, we're basically offering families an opportunity at a signed copy of Madden 2022. Give them the opportunity to be raffled in a contest to win the copy from an NFL player. It looks like she has it up.
What's up, TCGDC family? This is Byron Calvert with the New England Patriots, and I'm excited to announce that I have adopted your school. But the focus right now is go tell your parents to get you guys registered. And you have an opportunity to win the new Madden 22 signed by me. We're going to be raffling that thing off. So I'm excited to meet you guys, excited to build relationships, and let's go.
So again, we'll be using that as a tool to encourage families to register, but also from that, an important piece of what he said was he has decided to adopt the school. We had a great conversation with Byron and Brian, with Brian, and really talked about what that looks like, because we've had, professional players, different college players come by, and they met with students, but it wasn't that long-lasting relationship that we feel like our students need. So we had a great conversation and really laid out the law of the land to Byron and let him and made sure he understood that, adopting our school means a real connection, really developing relationship with our students, really, being there for them when they need you, being somebody that they can reach out to if they need somebody to talk to. And he's all for it. And we're hoping that it's going to eventually turn into opportunities where kids can go to football games. He graduated. Well, he didn't graduate. He left school early for the NFL, but he attended Maryland. We've already discussed different opportunities there with getting Maryland involved with, just letting people know about us and creating some awareness. So we certainly think it's going to be a great relationship moving forward for both parties. In regards to marketing, right now, that message, we're texting and mailing to families, as well as calling them to continue to try to get them registered for the upcoming school year. We are also advertising back to school on social media, letting families know that school is gearing back up. Obviously you can participate in the raffle, but we want to make sure that families are properly registered for the upcoming school year. So we're doing everything we can in regards to, making sure that family have the resources to get registered. We'll go to them. We'll help them on the call, whatever they need, really. We're at that point that we'll make sure that they get registered. It's just a matter of getting in contact with them and getting them across the finish line. Any questions?
Yeah, actually I do. What's our, I guess some of our social media handles?
TCG TCG_DC is the Instagram page. And if you search, because you would need to search DC, the Children's Guild DC, in order to find the Facebook page, because we have one for the organization as well.
Okay. Great.
So we certainly appreciate any reposting, on Facebook or Instagram. That's always helpful.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Turner, for that report. And just to keep everybody aware, we are running a little bit behind schedule. So on the next couple of reports, if we can just kind of be aware of that time constraint that we have going on. The next update that we will hear is from Ms. Lane and Dr. Daniels about the Middle States accreditation process, excuse me.
So we've updated you regularly on our Middle States accreditation process, which is a requirement of our charter in the District of Columbia. And we are ahead of schedule and have completed our self-study and met with the organization who will be doing their on-site reviews in October. And we met with them about a week, maybe a week and a half ago, and they were real pleased with our progress and highlighted that we were ahead of schedule and should be in a great spot. And then we're just compiling and finalizing all the documents that will need to be reviewed at the onsite and getting them in a usable fashion on the shared site. And then they'll come out in October and see the best part of our program, which is what we do day to day with the kids and our staff. So we're on track and very hopeful that we'll receive our accreditation over the course of this upcoming school year. Any questions about our accreditation?
Thank you, Ms. Lane. So we will move on to our next agenda item, which is the update on the university partnership.
Right, I'll take that again real quickly and leave enough time for the committee reports. Over 2 years ago, we were having a number of staff retention issues, and we were constantly like replacing staff. And so we embarked upon an intentional approach to partner with universities. We started with George Washington University, and we were able to get folks certified with a master's degree. They just graduated in the spring. And so that was awesome. Ms. Vernon was our graduate from DC. Then we have 4 more attending the program in this cohort, and it's a 2-year program, master's level, and specializing on working with children with emotional disabilities. And the staff who participate also agree to stay on for 2 years post-graduation, so we retain their commitment and their skill set by offsetting their tuition at a significant rate. Simultaneous to that, we had engaged with American University last year, and the partnership there is more reflective of their student teachers, called interns, who are required to do practicums. And so we've engaged with them, so they're sending us their interns. So you basically get additional staff to support in classrooms as they're developing their craft. These are master's level folks, and it doesn't cost you anything. So, and if they're good and quality, then you offer them a contract before they graduate, and thereby again increasing the quality of the staff that we're hiring. We also established through Dr. Jackson a partnership with University of District of Columbia for speech language pathologists, which are very hard to fill position. And as such, we were able to secure interns, again, who come out and can provide services to our students at little to no charge to us by providing them the supervision that's required to earn their credentialing. So we were able to secure 2 interns through that partnership this year. And lastly, we have a partnership with Howard University around securing social workers in the school. And I've been in communication with Dr. January Vance at Mr. Seabrook's invitation or connection, and talking about potentially getting some interns from their teacher ed department as well. So the university partners have proven a very effective recruitment and retention process for us, or practice, if you will. And, really just excited about continuing to expand those partners to help us meet our unique staffing needs at the school, and ensuring that we're putting the most qualified staff in front of our children. Any questions about our university partnerships?
Great job on that, Ms. Lane. That's definitely something that's going to help us in the long run with retaining staff and just making our school look, very attractive to other potential educators.
Thank you.
All right, so we will move on to the next agenda meeting, which is hearing from our committees, committee reports. And the first committee we would like to hear from is the Governance Committee.
Hi, everyone. There's not very much to report. We haven't met recently, partially due to schedules. The last meeting that we had, we decided we wanted to explore getting additional board members. We're currently at 11 with one person rolling off. As you may recall from the bylaws, we have the ability we have to have no fewer than 3 and a maximum of 15. So we're trying to put together a matrix of understanding where our skill sets are with the existing board and to see what holes there might be for to try to fill with new board members. So that's number one. Secondly, we do have committee chairs, so that's part's good. We still don't have additional officers, and so we're going to be reaching out to each of you to see if there's an interest in serving either as secretary, treasurer, or vice chairman. So that's all I have to report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. One quick question. Are you still accepting resumes for board members?
Yes, we are.
Great.
So if anybody has thoughts or ideas, please let us know. Certainly sounds like from the facilities report that we might want to have another finance or real estate person added to the board as a potential sort of buttress my background and skills as well.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Grant. Any other questions for the Governance Committee?
I just, Mr. Seabrooks, I don't know, I had made a recommendation for a board member after our June meeting, and I wasn't sure if Mr. Cran and the Governance Committee, had followed up on that particular lead.
Kathy, what's the name of that person again, please?
It was Dr. Rotunda Floyd Cooper. I forwarded her resume and information. I can resend if necessary.
Please do that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Duran. Ms. Lucane, Marketing Chair. Please provide a report. She's not here, huh? Okay. We will move on to the parent engagement, and I don't think Ms. Thomas is here either.
So I'm presenting for her.
Okay, great, thank you.
Hi, everybody. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So, Lord have mercy. So based off of the information that she provided to me, she wants to bring forward to the table to request to institute a parent engagement, academic excellence and compliance committee co-chair. So we are seeking to add a co-chair to the group for balanced representation and to ensure additional perspective to guide the nature of this type of engagement. The current composition consists of 5 members appointed from the Children's Guild Board membership at large, serving 2-year terms and led by the committee chair. In the future, with the additional members proposed for the board, the total number will exceed 5, likely becoming 7 to 8. And the proposed composition seeks to add 2 co-chairs plus 7 members appointed from the board. After this first term, the co-chairs can be appointed in alternating years. So, and then the justification is 2 co-chairs will provide more continuity and shared leadership to the PAC. This structure will keep the summer, early fall tasks moving smoothly while onboarding new members. Since the PAC's work is in its early stages, this is an essential committee capacity need. The rationale for this approach is to share the responsibilities given limited bandwidth and to create a two-person team who can take on a bigger governance role. And that's all she gave me.
Okay, that's interesting, and yes, I guess we will have to look into that further. But you know, I guess you guys have a decent amount of leeway to structure that committee as you see fit. You know, so I'm not sure if that requires an official capacity role, as opposed to just having the chair kind of talk through and figure out who they want to be the co-chair. But we can revisit that as needed, I think.
I have a
Uh,
question about that.
mhm.
Hi, everyone. So in terms of getting the co-chair, that's something that I'm on the committee as well. And I strongly believe that that's something that we need. When would we be able to solidify like either a yes or a no? Is that something that we would vote on? Could we vote on it now since we do have a quorum? So that we could kind of just like have it done, if that makes sense.
So my position, and maybe the governance committee might want to chime in, but my position is that doesn't necessarily have to be an official role, official capacity role as a co-chair. The chairperson can name a co-chair that they want to assist in whatever they need to get done. And that would be, you know, within the committee, you guys would decide who that co-chair could be. I don't know if there's anybody that has any other thoughts on that.
Gotcha. Okay, that sounds good. So just to clarify, in our next, again, when we have our smaller meeting, we can vote within our committee, have that person be the co-chair, and that would be that, right?
That's how I'm envisioning it.
Okay, that works. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying. I really appreciate it, Rob.
Yep.
Robert, this is Michael. Typically, it's the chair's prerogative to name chair people of the committees. So to the extent that there is going to be a co-chair in any one of these committees, it's up to you to approve or not.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess once those names have been chosen, just present them to me and I'll rubber stamp it. I don't think that's a big issue, in my opinion. We need all the help we can get to get these things done. So I look forward to hearing who the co-chair would be. All right. Any other questions for the PAC committee or I guess for Mr. McNeil, who's representing the marketing committee? And having heard none, we will move to the next item on the agenda, which is our current financial report from Mr. Gordon.
Good evening, everyone. So we'll be looking at May 31 figures this evening. The 630 numbers, which is our fiscal year end, are done preliminarily, but we have year-end adjustments to do, and rather than present unfinished financials, we'll look at May 31 from an operational standpoint. They paint a pretty good picture of where we wound up at the end of the year without those year-end typical adjustments that accountants require. So with that, we'll just move right into the first sheet of the three that you received, and that is the Statement of Revenue and Expenditures Trend Report, and it compares May 31, 2021 actual versus budget, as well as actual year-to-date versus prior year actual year-to-date. And I'll just hit some highlights and high points. Revenues are $1.7 million behind budget and also $1.6 million behind last year to date's actuals. Sounds bad, but we'll keep plowing through this. Personnel costs are $1 million below budget and $500,000 below where we were at the same time last year. Consequently, our total operating expenses are $1.9 million below budget, and that makes up for the revenue shortfall. We're also $1.7 million below prior year to date's total operating expenses. which leaves us with a change in total net assets running $482,000 ahead of budget and $308,000 ahead of where we were at this time last year. Our fundraising and grants are running $210,000 ahead of budget this year and $204,000 ahead of where we were at prior year to date. Given all this, it looks like we're still on track to beat our budgeted $33,000 full year budgeted change in net assets, which is akin to net income. So we will finish the year in the black and likely well ahead of our budgeted figures. Are there any questions on the revenue and expenditures report? Okay, moving on to the balance sheet, which is the next sheet that you all received. Here we're looking at, well, it's marked, unfortunately I made a mistake. It says year-to-date 430 in the top of the column. That really is 531 for both columns. My mistake. But our cash on the balance sheet was $507,000 a year ago. But our cash balance this morning was $4.384 million. And that's about $1 million higher than it was the last time we had this report at the end of April's numbers. So we're actually in pretty good shape from a cash standpoint. Our total current assets are $877,000 higher than the last report. And this is mostly due to an increase in our cash balance and our accounts receivable. Our total assets decreased by $190,000 since our last reporting. And mostly that's related to a decrease in cash balances at the balance sheet. And again, today we're about $1.4 million higher in cash than we were the last time we met. So this is just a change in timing differences for receipts, but we are in pretty solid place sitting with cash. Our intercompany payables are greatly reduced by, versus the prior period of reporting. And our total net assets have increased about $4,000 over the last period of reporting. So pretty flat, but pretty good just in terms of we've got lots of dry powder in terms of cash to achieve our needs for a long-term basis. So are there any questions on the balance sheet report? Okay, so now this is the second time that we've started to look in depth at our ratio analysis, which is one of the larger pieces of information that the DC Public Charter School looks at. And most of what we've got here is pretty good news or pretty flat news. So I'm just going to start at the top, and there's an explanation on the right-hand column what these, well, there's on the left-hand column is a definition of how we come to the figure. And on the right-hand, just kind of a shorthand of whether this is a good or bad number, but I'll walk you through. So our change in net assets margin declined from our last reporting period. We'll see that we want to go upward, but it did decline. But this is due to doubling of our year-to-date operating loss from at the end of April, $61,000 operating loss. We now have a $121,000 operating loss. We're still way above the -5% figure at 1.28%. And we're better than we were a year ago on this figure. So that's all pretty good and explainable to the city government. The aggregated net margin improved over the prior period. We're now about 1.5% above the trigger. Well, the trigger is 1.5% is bad, and we're at -1.14. So we're in pretty good shape there as well. Days of cash on hand has reduced since our last reporting by about 24 days, but we still have 112 days of cash on hand, which is pretty good considering DC is looking for 45 days. So we're in a pretty healthy position as of the reporting date. And remember, we've got even more cash, $1.4 million more than we did a month ago when we spoke, or 2 months ago when we spoke. Cash flow from operations margin is at 2%. DC is looking for us to be higher than 0%. So that's pretty good. It is, however, dropping 3% at the last reporting. But again, 2% is well above the 0%, so we're in pretty good shape. Our current ratio dropped from 3.59 to 2.75 this reporting period. It's still well above the 1-to-1 that DC requires. We're still in pretty good shape, even for a for-profit business. So rest assured, we're in pretty good shape with that balance sheet ratio. Our debt ratio dropped from 0.8 to 0.76, which means we're moving in the right direction, and that's good news. Our debt service coverage ratio increased from 3.6 to 8.07. That's a substantial jump. It's a very positive indicator of our long-term sustainability for the organization. Our primary reserve ratio increased from 0.07 to 0.217. DC is looking for 0.25, so we're pretty much getting there. And by the time we report out for year end, we should be above that 0.25 desired ratio. So that again is a good number. Our program service ratio expense, really no change from the prior period, and it's still pretty good at 93%. That means that 93% of what we're spending is going towards our families and children. And that's really good for any nonprofit. It's really good for a school. Defensive ratio is increased from 4.07 last reporting to 4.12 months on hand. A good trend. It's a slight change, but it's going in the right direction. And lastly, our liquidity ratio decreased from 0.72 to 0.68 as of the measurement date. But with our stronger cash reserves right now, we'll end the year with a stronger ratio than that. So all in all, our ratio reporting looks pretty good, pretty strong. We'll be able to report this to the city DC charter board, and they should be pleased with our operating results for the end of the year. Are there any questions on the finance report?
Yes, I have one or two. So Charlie, where is our money kept?
Currently, it's sitting in cash. We did recently, as a management team, visit with a much larger nonprofit organization that's not in the school, not in the education space, but is in the child serving space. And we spoke at length about opportunities for investing this cash securely and safely. And we've been introduced to some Chicago, and we'll be pursuing conversations in the next month to two about allocating some of this cash for a longer term investment for security of the organization.
And what's the name of this organization?
Top of my head, I can't tell you. Again, it was a meeting last month, and I don't want to tell you what kind of month I've had, but my memory's failing me.
Okay, so it's currently held in cash, and who's holding it?
It is in M&T Bank, which is a regional Eastern.
Yeah, I know M&T. Yeah. And are we happy with that bank?
We have a great relationship with that bank, and in fact, they maintain our cash funds for all the organizations that we manage and monitor and operate. And they've actually also been great sponsors of charitable giving towards us. So we've got a really good relationship with them, both locally in the Baltimore, Washington market, but as well as regional.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, if I don't want to overstep our boundaries between governance and management, but I think when we're talking about a couple $1 million and where it gets invested and by whom, I guess I would ask that we ask management to provide us with a plan of what they're thinking about doing and who they're talking with, and if they're making a decision, why they're choosing one over others.
I know you addressed that, Chairman, but I would like to respond that we will not make any type of move without interfacing with the board and getting your approval.
Thank you, Charlie.
I have a question about the aggregate 3-year margin. You said that they were in pretty good shape there, but I guess just a cursory looking at that number of negative 1.14, it just seems like it's kind of close or approaching that negative 1.5.
That's true, but if we go back 1 month, that same calculation was negative 2.7. So it's just the factor of the timing of which months are included in this calculation. It's recalculated for 36 period. And apparently 3 years ago, plus a month, we had a really lousy month. And we're moving towards where we're far more solvent. And so this number is going to keep improving. Again, remember that this is a rolling 36-month calculation. So it changes from month to month to month.
Any other questions for Mr. Gordon?
Nope.
All right, great. Thank you, Mr. Gordon, for your report. That will take us to the next meeting, agenda meeting, which is other business. And this is kind of open the floor to everybody, but I would first start by just saying that I just wanted to know who is our, I guess, and this might be to Dr. Daniels, but who is the liaison between us and Ms. Lavelli, as far as like when she sends out her, I guess, monthly messages to the Children's Guild Board.
That would be me, Mr.
That's
Seaver.
Kathy. Yeah.
Oh, okay, because I just wanted to make sure that we are, we should probably be mentioned every time they send it out. Hopefully we have something to kind of drop in there to get mentioned. And then one of the things that I was thinking initially, because is this our first year of being transitioning to the performance arts curriculum?
No, so we're not technically transitioning into the performing arts until the 22-23 school year. So we will be looking to write an amendment to the charter this school year to potentially go into effect in the upcoming school year.
Okay. That satisfies my question. Anybody have any other business that they would like to discuss right now? All right, having heard none, we will move to adjourn this meeting. We're ahead of schedule. Thanks to Ms. Lee.
So move.
I second.
All right, all those in favor of adjourning? Aye?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right.
I oppose it. I think we should stay on and stay. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, you'll be back. You can stay. You can stay, but everybody else is you're gonna be a one-woman meeting.